Welcome to the Curve Weekly, where we read the finance news so that you don't have to. I'm Sophie Hallwright. I am usually joined by my co-host Vic Harris, but today we have a very special guest.
Hi, I'm Abi Foster. I'm a chartered accountant, finance content creator, and usually referred to as that finance girl with the hair.
In today's episode, we're speaking about silver. It's going absolutely bananas. In case you missed it, gold had its moment. We're breaking down what's actually fueling it and what is next. If we've had gold, now we've had silver, what is the next potential investment that's going to go crazy?
We also spoke about Netflix and the 40% drop, but also the fact that it's sort of like a startup, and what does that really mean for us?
And after that, we went slightly off tangent. I mean, there was a very big story that we wanted to unpack. Should we just give a quick top line as to what we spoke about?
Yes. So we talked about how 52% of the US workforce have been reported as lonely, and it's costing around $154 billion to the US. We talked about the Chris Williamson and the Stephen Bartlett podcast. And then we also talked about habits that we have put into our lives that stop us from feeling so lonely.
This episode, full disclaimer, slightly longer than usual. I think when you have a very good guest on who knows how to yap, it gets a little bit longer. But it's packed with so many insights. We had some really funny chats and actually was so impressed at how easily you were able to be vulnerable. So hope you love the episode and let's dive in. So this is the first time that you've been on the Curve Weekly.
Yeah.
Very exciting. We've had one other person fill in for Vic, and it was someone from the community. Actually, bless her heart, she just had a baby and she spent about 20 hours researching and then came in, and it was actually amazing. She was so great. But we've never had another finance professional, expert in the chair. It's very exciting. Today we're going to be speaking about all the news that's been happening globally. Can you just tell us, is this the kind of thing that you keep an eye on closely?
Yeah, obsessed.
Where do you get your news? How did you become interested in it? Do you listen every morning to podcasts about money?
A little bit, a mix really. I think when I first started social media, I was trying to look for something that I could do every day that would help people. And I created this thing called the morning money news, where I do these 3 stars on my stories and I just go through all the finance news. Sometimes I'll look at it the night before, but mostly I'll just look at it first thing in the morning when I wake up. And then I just summarize it and I go, this is the headline, this is what it is, and this is how it impacts you. And I try and do that for 3 stories a day. It helps me as well because I think so many people disassociate themselves from finance and therefore disassociate themselves from the finance news. And that's really dangerous because some of these things that are happening have direct impact on your life. Even some of the topics we're talking about now, investing, everyone goes, oh, but I don't invest. I'm like, yeah, but you have a pension. That's investing. That's an investment. And therefore you have to be really careful that you're not completely disassociating from every part of your financial world.
And since you started posting morning money news, which I love, do people get in touch and say, oh, it's so nice to be finally understanding this? Is it starting to sink in? Because we obviously originally are from New Zealand and moved over here. I feel like I've said a year and a half for about 5.5 years. But I do feel like the UK is further behind than Australasia.
Yes.
Australia and New Zealand, I think, are quite far forward with the way that they think about money and investing, pensions, etc. I look around and don't see hardly any women talking about financial news. You are one of the only people that decode it in a similar way to us. And I guess I'm interested to know if your audience have started to get excited, interested, invested in it, or if it still kind of feels like too hard basket.
I think people are getting better at it. I get messages every day being like, thank you so much for doing this. This is how I take on my news now. I literally don't look at the news. Because that's the other thing. The news has been so grim for such a long time that people just didn't want to look at it and so weren't. And I think that's dangerous. So I wanted to give them something that was a bit easy to consume. It's literally one story. You can hold it and read it, or you can just swipe past it if you don't want. But do you know what happens most days? If I'm ever late, so I wake up at 5:20 every morning, and the stars are usually out by about 5:40. If, God forbid, I have a little bit of a lie-in, people will message me being like, where's the news? I'm like, I don't work for you.
Sorry.
I know. People are like, where is it? I'm like, it's coming. Hold on. And so people have got really reliant on it, but it's fine. I love it. And I'm so glad I'm there to help people. That's a whole reason I started social media. And it's the whole reason why I do what I do is because I think any way I can help someone else makes me feel good selfishly. And also, yeah, it's just a good thing to do each day, isn't it? It's just like a gratitude journal. You know, it's just another habit.
There's something about the ritual of having stuff that goes out all the time too. And I think that's what you're really, really good at. So for anyone who would like to follow your content online at
Abigail Rose Foster. So I do the Morning Stars, I do Finance Fridays with Foster, where I like answer finance questions, and then I do the Sunday quiz where I like do a quiz on each Sunday at 7. It kind of keeps me on track because social media can be really overwhelming. And actually, if I have these like rules in place, it just helps me deliver content to people.
It's like thinking about it like a TV show almost.
Yes.
Your account is the show.
Yeah.
So today we've got lots of stories to get through. The first thing we're going to talk about is silver is the new gold. So silver prices are up 60% this month.
Yes.
And it's the kind of thing we've spoken about gold quite a lot in the last few months, particularly because it went up and it was like having a big moment. And I feel like silver's kind of just like quietly been creeping along. And now all of a sudden, some of these stats and it being at kind of an all-time high, I'm like, okay, what's going on? So can we chat about it? What's actually happening?
Yeah, I think the first thing to think about is actually not even the commodity itself, is to think about what's been happening in politics. Because when people head to commodities like gold, like silver, even things like wheat and like just random things, it's obviously because people are fleeing from something else. And it's usually because we are nervous, the market's getting stressed out, and it's mainly the geopolitical tensions coming from the US right now. People are worried, they're nervous. You've got people being unsure of where they should put their money, and so they're looking for safety. You know, they can't rely on the safety of governments anymore because they're becoming quite erratic. And so they're going, well, where is safe? And, you know, assets or commodities like silver, like gold tend to be safer. They're also usually really boring. And so that's what people want, is in times like this, we revert to things like cash or commodities because they're safe, they're boring, you sort of know what you're going to get. But yeah, with silver, we've seen huge rises, and I think it's a knock-on effect from gold prices, really. Gold prices have been staggering over the last few years. They have gone up just extraordinary amount. And I think people are then looking, okay, well, what's next? And often when it comes to jewelry, it's like the stages of,
I guess, like Bitcoin, you know, you had like Bitcoin and Ethereum, and it's almost like they've flocked the next thing.
Yeah.
It's like you fill up and everything's kind of been like blown up in one asset. And it's like, what's the next closest thing people can jump to? And it's silver.
Exactly. But obviously the main concerns, obviously geopolitical tension, tons of other things, conflict, just loads of reasons why people head to safety like cash, like commodities. But the knock-on impact, I think that we will see, because I don't necessarily think it's going to be a bubble, because we don't know if it's a bubble until it bursts anyway. But I think we need to be careful that the knock-on impact of this massive rise in silver price is the inflation, like the inflationary effect it's going to have on everything. Because silver is used in AI, it's used in solar panels, it's used in so many products that we don't even think about. And it means that all of those products are going to become more expensive, and therefore it's going to increase those prices, which we will all then like feel the effects of.
I think that's such a good example, you know, when we're talking about the idea of financial news being really important to everyone.
Yeah.
Not whether or not you buy individual stocks or you invest in the stock market or not. Understanding how things are all so interconnected is fascinating. You know, the idea that silver is up more than 100% since last year.
Yeah.
And if you also put that in perspective, the S&P 500, which is the top 500 companies in the US, that's up like roughly 15% over the last year. So it's enormous.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think the interconnectedness between silver being so expensive, but the knock-on effects of where silver's used, which means all those products and services become more expensive because they all need silver and they're having to buy it at a higher price, which means all of the prices are getting pushed up, and that comes back to us as consumers.
Yeah.
It's so important to understand that. But I do think unless you like peel back the layers on the news, people don't link those things together. So I think that's a really good explanation.
I think people think as well when it comes to commodities, like, well, how do I own that? You can go and buy silver jewelry or gold jewelry. You can also go and invest in like gold bars or silver bars, things like that.
It's very Gossip Girl, isn't it?
Yeah, you could. It'd be great, actually.
Sorry, but do you remember Chuck Bass opening his safe and there's like 7 bars of gold?
Yeah, we love that.
So sexy.
Yeah. I remember when I found out he was English, I was like devastated.
Oh, really?
As an English person, I was like, oh, that's
I was
sad.
so excited.
Really?
I love the British accent. God.
Yeah, when you're British, not so much. Yeah, and then you think, but you can also invest through things like ETFs. Like you can buy gold and silver in very different ways now.
True. As you don't have to buy the physical thing. Because I think a lot of people will hear this story and think, oh, I've got a few silver bangles. That's very exciting. I've got a few silver rings. Maybe I'll flick those onto a pawn shop.
Yeah. Which you could do.
But to be fair, you could, right?
Yeah.
Like, because it's worth so much more now. So, if anyone wants to sell.
But the non-stressful way is just holding it in like an ETF form.
100%. What are your thoughts? I really loved that you touched on the geopolitical, just the general overwhelm and stress that people are feeling right now, and the fact that it's making people essentially scared and therefore trying to look for places that they can put their money that are safer. When you see prices going up this much, for example, gold going up as much as it has and now silver, you mentioned the bubble. And for people who don't understand what the bubble is, it's essentially the idea that something gets bigger and bigger and bigger, whether it's an asset or it's worth heaps, and the bubble gets bigger and people are waiting for it to pop. As someone that is not a political journalist with a huge amount of acumen in this space, I don't feel like it's going to be getting much better in the next 6 to 12 months. Probably going to be a few years of like roller coaster feeling. So, but gold and silver can't continue going up at such an extreme amount. So what do we...
Well, or can it? We don't know. This is, I think, to be honest, I was having this conversation this time last year as gold was starting to rise. And I was like, oh, well, I wonder when it will... And then it's just keep going and going and going. And like you said, because political tensions have been so high, people are looking for safety. And so we are falling into a place where people don't know where to go, and so they're just going where they know, which is often cash and commodities. So yeah, and the bubble, the pop element, no one knows until it's happened. It happens because you basically get to a stage where people go, hold on, this is seriously overvalued now. It cannot be worth this. Like even speculation and all the rest of it, it can't be worth this amount of money for what it is. And that's when people go, whoop, okay, and it all like ripples down. But you can't time. So I would never be able to say to someone like it's a good time or it's a bad time to get in, because a year ago, I think people were saying to me like, oh, is it too late to invest in gold? Look now, like your investments would have done really well in the last year. So I don't know if I'm honest. And I think anyone that says they do know is lying. Yeah, so I think 100%. we're gonna just see, because you never know. Trump could just, there is a lot of things. I feel sometimes he just wakes up and chooses, what's his thing? Truth Social?
He's like, bam, bam, bam.
Yeah, he tweet, or what's it called on Truth Social, where he, I don't know, he puts a message out on there and it just like the whole economy just is terrified. But then the next day he might do something where people are feeling great. Like, last week's Curve Weekly, you were talking about how all of these like massive entrepreneurs like Zuckerberg, Elon Musk, they're all benefiting massively off of this Trump situation. So I don't know. Who really knows what's going to go on? Because everyone's sort of benefiting from it. Well, those people are. So will those people be integral in trying to take that down? I don't know. Like the Nicki Minaj thing this week. Have you seen that?
Okay, can you tell me what's going on? I keep seeing people doing a Nicki Minaj face and I have no idea what's going on.
It's giving me ick. So Nicki Minaj has come out and done like a speech where she's saying she supports Trump so that she could get a golden visa.
You're joking.
I didn't even realise that she wasn't American. I was getting really confused. But anyway, so she's given her and her kids golden visa, or he's given her and her kids golden visas now. And she's come out and publicly said, I support Trump. And I'm like, what? How? Like, she must clearly have gone, wow, my music career is done. I don't need any more support from anyone. I'm just going to, like, what?
That blows my mind.
I know. I was devastated, because it's like, how can you support someone that the situation around ICE, like, it is what it is. Like, you can't explain your way out of ICE being okay. Like, it's not okay. And he supports that, and therefore by supporting him, you're saying that's okay? What? Like, everyone saw the picture of the little boy that had been taken from school so that they could capture his parents. In what world are we all just sitting around and being like, yeah, okay, but he's making the economy better, so let's just pretend he's fine? No. And then when celebrities come out and basically endorse him, I think that is horrific.
Now, before we move on to the next story, I would like to ask you one final thing on this whole commodities flying through the roof. Yeah. So We've said gold has had an absolute, time in the sun, as they would say. Silver's having its big old moment. What is next? Like, is bronze a thing? What is sort of the next commodity that people could go to? Because isn't that kind of a good way to think about it? Rather than buying something when it's super high and already really, really overvalued, the best thing you can do when it comes to investing is find the thing that has room to grow.
Yeah.
So what other commodities, and I know it's not saying like this is what's going to happen, but I don't really know other commodities.
I know, to be honest, and other commodities can get very boring because also don't forget, the lower you go down effectively in the grades of the value of it, the more likely it is to be used in everyday services, everyday production, basically.
Right.
So when you think about bronze, it's most likely stuff that's being copper, all of that's being used to build things all the time. And if
so it's not as high valued, basically.
No, and if we then all start jumping on that bandwagon and driving that price up, the prices of everything else is going to go up. It's just, supply and demand inflation. So I think it's important that we're aware of the knock-on impacts of all of that. Maybe people will just start to look for like cash, or maybe, I don't know. I really, honestly, I wish I had a crystal ball when it came to all of this stuff, because I think I get asked a lot, what should I invest in? And I'm like, it depends on so many factors. Like, this is why people can't give out financial advice online, because it depends if you were a single girl on like a median salary based in South London versus a family woman based up in the north that has that earns really well, but like disposable income is slightly different. Do you know what I mean? Like, all of those factors play a part into like what you should or shouldn't invest in.
Yeah.
Which is why it should be individual.
And it's super annoying because I remember when we first started the curve, I would just be begging Vic to tell me what to do.
Yeah.
And she's like, well, it totally depends on your situation. You're like, oh, shut up. Just tell me what to invest in.
Yeah.
And it would get so frustrating. And now I totally understand the concept of that. Really. And also, it's not just your own situation. Like, you might have 10 kids. It's like what you invest in is very different to someone that's single and focused, blah, blah, blah.
Yeah.
But it's also a values thing. And to your point about, you may want to invest in bronze, but actually what's that going to do? What is the flow on? And starting to think like a conscious investor, I think, is a really important element too.
Yeah.
Okay, let's move on to Netflix. Unless you've been living under a rock, you may have missed this story. But it's honestly like this story is a Netflix show in itself. In fact, maybe they'll do that.
Oh, 100% they will. They'll have to.
It's fascinating what's happening. So essentially, if you've missed it, Netflix shares are down about 40% since last June. So it's had an absolute tanking. Up until then, Netflix was doing so well. I actually invested in it like 3 years ago and doubled my money. Like, it was insane. Anyway, the company is having a bit of a wobble. What do you take from the story? What are some of the things that you'll note? Like, I mean, we can do an update on what's happening with the big acquisition.
Yeah.
But maybe we could chat about just Netflix as a company and the industry within media. And because it's super interesting. Like, Stranger Things has just come out. You would have thought that would have given it a massive boost, but it's still struggling.
It's still a startup, really. It's still constantly reinvesting in itself, which I think is really good sign. Like, it's still trying, like, I know we said we'll talk about the acquisition in a minute, but it's still trying to acquire, it's still investing in products all the time. It's still navigating its way throughout, because obviously it replaced Blockbuster, didn't it? Like, did you have Blockbuster?
Yeah, we did. Honestly, going to a DVD store was like the highlight of my life. Do you remember the sealed section? And you would there'd be like at the back of the DVD store, and it was like dark and it was all porn. And like, I just remember like trying to slide in and like have a quick look in there while no one was watching.
No, I don't actually remember that.
Really? There was like an adults only section.
There must have been. But honestly, I've always been a bit like things, if it's not happening in my vision right here, it's not happening in my life. Yeah. So that's probably why I feel I've always been a bit like that. But yeah, with Netflix, obviously it's what beat Blockbuster. Blockbuster didn't diversify, and Netflix came along and went, right, we're just going to make this easier. And each year it's having to invest more and more into like, well, what's coming next? What do people want? It's having to compete with YouTube on a huge level. Like, the next generation don't watch telly. They just watch YouTube. It's how Mr. Beast has got where he has, because he is effectively the presenter to the world. When I was young, I remember you knew This Morning presenters, like they were your friends because it was always on the telly. Your mum watched them every day, that kind of thing. Whereas like Mr. Beast has become that, but to the world. Like, in what world would we ever have that in the past?
For anyone that doesn't know, he's a huge YouTuber.
Yeah. I'd be amazed if even I don't ever watch his stuff, but I know who he is. And I think, Netflix are trying to navigate their way through how do they compete with YouTube the whole time, you know, and also on a global level. So I think, yes, it's down 40%, but, you know, the stat was that it still only has under 10% of everyone's watch time. So there's still a large part of the market that they can still tap into. But how are they going to do that, I think, is the big question.
I think what you said before about it being a startup is really worth pausing on for a second, because most people would hear Netflix and think it's one of the biggest companies in the world as if it's a startup. But that stat, the fact that it's only got 10% of its essentially like total addressable market.
Yes.
It shows how much growth there is to still infiltrate the world. You know, it's early doors. And when you think about investing, if you're looking at something, for example, if Netflix had 80% rather than 10, it only has 20% of the population to try and target. That's not a huge amount of growth. No. But think about it, if it's at 10% and it has 90 to go, it's got a huge amount of work to do.
I think it made a few weird decisions this year as well, in the last year, especially when obviously it did its transition from like if you had one.
Oh my God,
if you had one account. Yeah, the account lockout was so annoying.
God,
just so many people. Annoying. And I think that they had to think kind of logically about where the future was going. And so they really do want money, but they're like, oh, all right, we need to like set our stance out now, because like even I was like using my dad's account and my brother was using it and my mum was using it.
I'm so glad that you admitted that. I feel like no one else over the age of 24 has admitted that except for me.
So well, no, but now I have to pay for it as well because we're not in the same house, and it's so frustrating.
I've not upgraded. I'm like, this is...
How are you watching it then?
Yeah, I mean, I'm not going to lie to you. I've swapped from like to Disney Plus. I've been watching
this is a thing.
Other ones.
And this is what I think they're navigating, is that everyone else is getting on board now. Like, it doesn't matter where you look. TV is trying to look like YouTube and Netflix. Whatever they have, they're trying to get hold of. Like, if you look at the BBC News app, you don't have to scroll down very fast for it to start showing you videos that look like TikTok, because it's trying to tap into this new market. And I think Netflix is trying to navigate its path to what does this look like. And like, you know, the fact that like Netflix do their own like Leicester Square releases and things now. Do you remember like if a film came out and
like
they're on the red carpet? Oh, that's it, premiere. God, sorry, some words. You should hear my voice note to my girlfriends. I'm like, what's that word? And they're like, hello? I'm like, yeah, let's go with that.
Hi, I'm still going 14 minutes in. Are you still there? Yeah, cool. Let's keep chatting. My voice notes are getting out the gate long. And someone sent me this passive aggressive message the other day. It was like a video of someone saying it's selfish to send a voice note because you're the one, it's quick for you, but it's longer for someone else to listen. And I thought, oh, can we not bring that in? I'd rather we didn't bring that in.
I've got all voice note friends. If you're not a voice note friend, then you're not a friend because you're not getting a message from me.
Perfect.
I think voice notes are flipping brilliant because
just 1.5 speed me if you have to.
Well, do you know what my problem is and I'm worried that your listeners are going to comment this, is you don't really have to 1.5 me. I talk at speed.
Yeah, because you've had 7 coffees anyway.
And I'm like, and they're like, oh my gosh, this girl. So like some of my girlfriends are like, I can't 1.5 you because I can't hear you.
It's like you turn into a chipmunk.
Literally. But there are times where I'll send like a long voice note. I don't know if anyone else does this. And I get to the end and I go, I'm really sorry that this was a podcast, but hope you enjoy. And then like I just like click go. Or like at the moment I'm living a life where there's a lot of plots going on, and I'll voice note and I'll like do it to the masses. So I'm like, hi everyone. I'm like, welcome to the 5-minute podcast of what is going on in Abby's life now. And then I just forward it to loads of people.
That's such a good idea.
And then I message them all being like, you can listen to this like on the toilet. It's not a like one where you have to like be focused. It's like listen to it on the toilet if you have time. It's not urgent. Especially within female groups is the weigh-in of different opinions, because I have a lot of different girls I send this voice note to, women, sorry, and like some of them are mums, some of them are single, some of them are married, they're all in different stages of their lives, and so you get really different opinions on characters. They'll weigh in with their viewpoint, and sometimes they'll like a character or they won't like a character, and I find that really interesting.
I love that we're calling them characters when they're definitely people. Stunning.
Someone else told me off for this yesterday, but I just call everyone characters.
I love it because you're the main character. Everyone else is just
everyone's life is just a film or a play, isn't it, really? And we're all just like navigating our way through it.
I have thought, and we're going to get to the whole loneliness epidemic soon, but
thanks. That's where you
No, actually what I was going to say is that I do think that that's the thing guys struggle with, is they don't have heaps of female friends or friends in general to give them lots of different perspectives. We do. You know, we can talk to so many of our girlfriends about things. It's like having 15 therapists.
Yes,
but they don't have that. And I do think that not only the different perspectives gives us a way more holistic view on how we're thinking about different situations, but also that sense of friends being in it with you and knowing what's happening in your life. They don't have that. Can you imagine a guy sending a group or voice note to 15 of their friends? Like, no.
No, they should just be better.
Okay, right. Back on track. Back to Netflix. Now, one of the things that I noticed in this research was the fact that the ad revenue is over 1.5 billion and they're expecting that to double by 2026, which I thought was quite fascinating because I didn't think Netflix would be going down the advertorial route.
Yeah.
Do you think that's maybe because that's how YouTube makes money? It's almost like trying to replicate the same business model but with different content?
Yes, there will be people in that team that are going, well, what can we look at that's a close competitor and how do we mirror or make that better? I think, you know, they've for a long time got away with them being the front runners and now they're probably not. And obviously they've got a huge bill coming up because obviously they are about to acquire or they're trying to acquire someone else and therefore they've got to find ways to make money. It can't be like Uber where they're just constantly loss making. But we'll see.
Lots of businesses. So for people who are like, wait, what? I thought Uber was one of the most profitable businesses. It's massive. How is it loss making? There's different types of businesses. Some of them operate in debt because they're not chasing being like positive from a profit perspective. And then others are, you know, there's different milestones and this all comes down to the way businesses are funded. I don't know, Abby, if you wanted to add more here, but I do think lots of people would have heard that and been like, what?
Oh, sorry. Yeah, sometimes I can throw away a comment. So Uber, I think it is now, I think from reading the news, was the end of last year, it started to become profitable. But for years and years and years, for as long as Uber's been going, it has been loss making. It ran at a loss purely because that was how it was going to get to where it was going to get to. And when people invested in Uber, they knew that was how it was just going to be because they needed volume to make profit. And they didn't have that volume yet. So it was just about spending money, basically.
It was basically spending on growth. They were spending
Huge.
to grow, even though they were spending more than what was coming in because they knew their future plans were going to be.
Which is why I'd love to say, like, to anyone listening as well about, because sometimes I think people go like, oh, everyone especially America and Silicon Valley make running a business look so easy. And it's like, yes, but don't forget some of these massive companies have never made profit, but they're allowed to because they're so massive and there's a lot of other things going on at play here. So when you're running a business, it's never that simple. You know, it's like the whole 24 hours in a day, that Molly May thing where it's like, we all get the same 24 hours. I'm like, yes, but I'm not allowed to run my business at a loss because HMRC will shut me down. Like, it's a very different concept. So, yeah. But if you're Uber, it's slightly different.
Well, different businesses just have different approaches and their success models are different. So a loss-making business, for example, Uber, their investors are expecting that. So when they come out with their results, it's not a shock for everyone in that business because they're purposefully running it in a certain way. So Netflix subscribers have gone up to 325 million paid subscribers, which is the most that they've ever had. And I think that it's probably worth just saying, if you're looking at this and you're looking at Netflix shares and you're thinking, holy shit, they're down 40%, that's enormous. Remember that some of these milestones are bigger than they've ever done. So like the fact that they've crossed that milestone from over 300 million paid subscribers, but that's only 10% of the total addressable 100%. Remember that people freak out when there's uncertainty in the stock market, right? And so as Netflix is looking to acquire a new business, which in case you missed it, basically they're trying to buy Warner Brothers. There's this whole thing going on right now where Warner Brothers and is it Paramount are basically trying to buy it. It's this big bidding war. Netflix are going to have to use huge amounts of the cash on their balance sheet to acquire this business. So the idea of something going wrong or there being a hiccup or whatever, investors are like, oh, well, you don't have your emergency fund or your FU fund. So like maybe it's going to be a tumultuous few years, which is why the share price has gone down. It's not that all of a sudden the business is this really bad business model or they've had these awful results come out. It's just that people panic when things are uncertain. So if I look at this, I'd be really interested to hear what your thoughts are, particularly because I know YouTube, you're so on board with what's happening there. And I agree, I know YouTube has a huge amount of growth, but I still look at Netflix and think there's so much growth that this business can do. And I don't think the share price is down because they're running it badly. It's just the fact that, there's a bit of turbulence at the moment.
Exactly. Just like earning reports come out, people will go, okay, maybe it's not as safe as I want it to be. People's risk appetite's different. They might just go, this isn't really the safety I wanted. I'm just going to move away, and it can drop a price, but it can be just the opposite of basically a bubble where people look back and go, oh my God, this is not worth this. People can look at the Netflix price and might think, it's definitely worth more than that. It's just that people are undervaluing it at the moment because they might feel like for them, it's overvalued, but it's personal. It's so personal.
Now, the biggest, most interesting, potentially controversial story that we'll be speaking about today is the cost of loneliness. So US companies have spent a really long time treating loneliness as like a personal problem and productivity as a sort of spreadsheet business problem. And there's been new stats that have basically come out to prove that otherwise and essentially make businesses realize that lonely employees equal poor output and therefore extremely expensive to businesses. Where do we even start with this story?
Well, the stats, so 52% of US workers feel lonely. Fair. So the cost of loneliness is £154 billion. What was the end of that stat? That is wild.
US employers, approximately $154 billion a year it's costing companies based on the way loneliness is impacting its workers. So it's things like, they're showing up to meetings with their cameras off, they're disengaged, they're not trying, low energy, brain fog, that kind of thing. It's essentially the idea that mental health or loneliness is directly impacting companies' abilities to make money or be as profitable as they could be because they're spending $154 billion a year. And I think also things like hybrid working from home, lots of those things obviously is exacerbating loneliness because people are way more segregated than they have been before. But I just find, I find this whole conversation really fascinating, particularly as I'm sure most people who listen to this podcast have seen reels and all sorts of women clapping back at the Stephen Bartlett podcast around, and I can't remember who was the guest.
Chris Williamson.
Right.
Yeah,
and so they were
like yellow glasses.
Yeah. And so if you've missed this, just give a very quick overview as to what her face is like. Don't get me started.
Very quick overview. It's basically Chris Williamson and Stephen Bartlett, which are two childless men, have come out and said that there is a pandemic of lower childbirth rates and it is down to women. Effectively is what they said. And
it's our fault, basically, that there's not more babies being born.
Yeah. And the uproar, the uproar of that, as a woman, I'm like,
I don't even know where to go with this.
I know. I'm like, how do I start it? There's such a huge part of me that's like, it's really difficult when you see all this stuff online where it's like men are lonely. And I'm like, could there be some reasons? Like, have we dived into why they might be? And it's like, why are women not having as many children? Well, okay, why don't we step back and figure out that like having a child now is wildly expensive. It's not like it was years ago. We don't have a village society anymore where your mum was down the road or your auntie lived next door and you needed childcare. Cool, just pop next door. Your mum probably lives so far away from you now because you've got to live in the city because you have to live near work. Because if you want a decent job, you have to be near your office so you can get in on time. Like, there's all these barriers that make it so hard. And also, as women, we're being told you can have it all, but not all at once. And so therefore you've got to make decisions. And often the biggest times in your career are your childbearing years.
I hate the childbearing.
I know. It makes
the word. I just can't.
I know, but that's what's happening. And so we're having to decide between our career and children. And then we go, well, to get children, we probably, not for everyone, but you might need another guy involved, right? And then you go, well, my career gives me like stability, income. I feel in control of that. And then you look for a man and you go on to a dating site and you think,
sorry, have you been on Hinge?
Exactly. I'm like, that's not giving me stability. It's not giving me control. I'm like,
do you know what it comes down to? What are they bringing to the table that I can't give myself? That is the essence that we're kind of getting to here. And also, we're the ones that have to put our bodies on the line, our careers on the line. Sorry, what is in it for us? I'm kind of confused with why I'm having to sacrifice everything. And you're concerned about your genes not making its way into a baby. However, what I'm more concerned about is the fact that if I did have a child with one of these people that I see on Hinge, I'm most likely my career will be down the toilet because you're not going to support me enough so that the kids are going to then need me, because it's not going to be a 50. Like, I think that there's a huge amount of pressure being put on women to have the babies. And it's like, if there were men that were showing up and doing the laundry and making dinner and doing all of the things that are not inherently feminine, however, we've had to do for so long because it's sort of that you're running the household. Now that we've stepped into careers, the household and the children, that should be a shared responsibility in the same way that childcare should be split. But you shouldn't be thinking, oh, they only earn $40,000 a year, my female partner. Obviously, this is very heteronormative, but like, so that's how much it's going to cost for childcare, so you should give up your job. It's like, actually, let's split that. It's going to be half of my salary and half of yours.
Yep.
You know, I think that the way we're looking at this is so wrong. And
motherhood genuinely is one of the biggest issues that causes the gender pay gap to be what it is, and it's a global issue. Like, the gender pay gap is effectively when women are starting off at the same level as men, but not finishing at the same level as men. Like, we're not getting to those president C-suite roles because something happens in the middle. And also I would like to caveat, there are so many women that want to be mothers, and that's what they want to be, and they should be entitled to do that. They should be financially supported, they should feel in control, and that's what they want to do. Amazing. There are also a ton of women that don't want kids, don't want anything to do with it, and so don't think about it. Great. But it's that middle group where we're having to decide, or people, I'm single, so it's not something I'm thinking about right now, but people are having to decide if it's their career or if it's children. And like you said, what normally happens if they're in like a relationship is they look at salaries and go, well, you earn more, so therefore I should give up work. That's not how it works. Like, we should be splitting all of this and going, okay, but is going out of the job force now going to long-term impact you? The short answer is yes. Are you putting into your pension? No, whilst you're on maternity most of the time, and therefore you're going to have a pension gap issue. The ripple knock-on effects of this is huge. I feel like we've walked away from the loneliness element, but I think it's like people feel like full honesty, like as a single girl at 31, there are so many times where I've worked really hard to like live on my own and have like all of my own things and like not need a man vibes. And be strong and all of that. But I turn around and I feel so lonely. Like, I have to go to dinners and I have to be like an 11th wheel at the dinner table because everyone's got their partner. And then I always get put on the end, like the weird massive seat at the end, as if I'm like the party act of the evening. And usually, given my job, I sort of sit there and I often get sat next to like a reform voter. And they just like put me there for the lols to be like, debate with my husband, and I'm like, right, fine, I thought I was finished for the day, but come on, let's talk about Nigel Farage.
Pull up a seat, let's go.
And I think that's the parts of the loneliness that we forget. Even when you are with people in the room, you can still feel lonely because you're not in a relationship. And I think if I'm looking for someone, I'm just looking for someone that can support me through my career. But because I have a weird career, and so many women have weirder careers now, we've had like squiggly careers and we're in roles that are traditionally masculine, we feel like, or I have felt in the past, that men just don't really get it and therefore don't want to be around it. I hear all the time from men, like at these like dinner parties where I'm usually the only single one there, men are like, I'm so impressed by what you do. And I'm like, oh, thank you. But they're almost like minimizing it. And then their wives are like, oh, I could never do what you do. Like, when do I have time to do like the washing and this and that? And like we were talking about before we started recording, like, when do you have time to do the food shop? I'm like, I just don't do it.
Neither.
Like, it's just a life choice I've had. And maybe I'm a part of that 52% feeling a little bit lonely, but from the outside, it looks like I'm not. And actually, I think it's because of the culture that everything has instilled in us that we should be doing more and at a bigger speed. But I think, do you know what, one of the things I've learned in 25 was that, so someone asked me what my like biggest success was last year, and I said my friendships, because they have been the thing that stops me being lonely. Because at any time, doesn't matter where they are, and it's the beauty of technology, is if I needed any of my friends, I can call them, FaceTime them, and we can have conversations so quickly. But sometimes it can make me feel more lonely when we get off the phone, because you're like, oh, I'm now on my own in my flat. So it's something to think about, that actually, yes, but it doesn't mean like you don't have to be an incel to be lonely. Like, you can also be someone that on the outside looks like they're having a great time. And it doesn't mean you're failing it's just the construct of life right now.
I really appreciate you sharing that, because I think a lot of people would look at your life and think, you know, it's just so easy to judge from what you see, which is a very shiny, enormous head of hair with stunning style and lots of friends and a flying career. You know, you do hear generally the incels of the world talking about how they want their genes to be passed on, not really successful people who are actually, and also one of the groups that we didn't talk about is women who are single who do want kids and just can't find anyone that is half decent. You know, there's this real separation at the moment where it sort of like feels like the loneliness or the birth rate is like a gendered thing. It's not. There's lonely people, men and women, who do want to be in really nourishing relationships. You shouldn't have to choose one or the other.
I think what we're going through in 25, and have been for a long time since COVID, is we've got a pandemic of speed. Everything has to happen so fast now. And even interactions that we have with friends and relationships, it's almost like, right, running to the next thing. And actually we've forgotten how to just be. And actually I think I'm terrible at it as someone that's quite neurospicy as well. Like, I can be hyper emotionally aware, but I'm also thinking about 5 different things all at once. And if you're someone that doesn't know me very well, you might consider that as me being rude, because I'm talking to you, but you probably are thinking, is she looking at her phone? Is she doing this? Is she here? And I think that can cause loneliness as well, especially because I'm at a stage in my career where I'm just working a lot because I can. I would struggle to find lots of time in my day to be able to just sit and like be with someone. Like it would, because I'm always doing the next thing. But it's just a stage in my life right now, and I think lots of people, you know, it's not even about being single, because you might feel lonely in a relationship, which I think is even worse.
Yeah, that's actually such a good point.
But I think it's important that people realize that like it's not something that you can't fix. You just need to kind of work at it. And I don't know. Yeah, it's just something I have thought about a lot, and I think this stat that it's costing the government money is something that the governments across the world should be thinking about, because, you know, when they freeze tax thresholds and we call something called fiscal drag, where we're paying more tax based on the fact that, yes, technically we're earning more, but the tax thresholds aren't moving, it stunts growth. And it stunts growth on so many angles, because you go, well, I'm not going to try any harder at work, because why would I, when I'm only going to take home 40p on the pound of the every extra pound I earn, let's say.
Could you maybe explain fiscal drag as well for anyone that doesn't understand what that really means?
Yeah, so fiscal drag is effectively where the tax threshold, so the figures at which you start paying tax. So in the UK, we have like basic rate, higher rate, and additional, and they're all at different levels. If those don't rise with inflation or average earnings each year, but your wage rises, even by just a little bit, you are going to be paying more tax, basically, on your salary. And what happens as well in the UK specifically, if you earn over £100,000, you have something called this 60% tax trap, where in theory you might end up only taking home 40p on the pound of every extra pound you earn.
Outrageous.
Exactly, and it's hindering growth, because people get to that element or get to that level of income and go, well, it's not worth me working for an extra 40p on the pound, so I'm just not going to bother. And then it stunts your kind of feeling of self-worth, because maybe you're not going to push yourself to earn more. You might then hold less enjoyment in your job, and so you feel disassociated from it and then feel lonely. So there are so many financial aspects.
An interesting way to look at it.
Yeah, there's so many financial aspects that lead to it. Like I get so much happiness from my job. But if I was being told that, okay, but for the next hour you're not going to get paid to do it, I'd be a bit like, okay, I don't mind, because I love it. But if I was then told, okay, well, for the next 10 hours, you're not going to get paid, you sort of think, what? Like, what's the point then? And so it doesn't matter how much you love your job or how much you love your career, tax and the global and like government all play an impact. And I think they should be talking about this, because it impacts our mental health and therefore impacts everything. And, you know, I just think a happy world is a nice world, but we're struggling with that right now. I definitely am, you know, read the news when I wake up, and sometimes I think, oh my God, this is terrible. The world is terrible. You just have to be, you know, do your gratitude journal, take a deep breath and keep moving.
A couple of meditations here and there.
Yeah, exactly.
What I would say though is, if you're listening to this and you are thinking, yeah, I do feel a bit lonely, I think maybe there's actually comfort in knowing that there's a lot of us that are feeling that way. And you know, reaching out to friends, finding things that make you feel more connected in an incredibly disconnected society, hopefully can start to bring some of that back. I don't know if this is helpful for people, but we had a podcast we released at the end of last year, which kind of our reflections on the year, and I listened back to it. And I honestly nearly told the team to like pull it. Actually, I did tell the team to pull it down. I was like, I hate it. I'm so embarrassed at how sad I sound. Like I sound so stressed and lonely. And it was a really hard time. And I have come into this year, the classic new year, new me. And I have been trying to do really small things that have helped me feel more connected. And I think when you feel connected to yourself and to the world around you, you feel less lonely. And even just super small things, like if I'm having a cup of tea, I don't know if this is like a bit woo-woo for people, but like noticing how warm the cup is, like really small stuff, like my feet are here now. You know, it's so easy to get really stressed out about how overwhelming the news can be and everything's moving so fast. But you know, you look at so many people who share their insights or wisdom on their deathbed, and the things they say they're going to miss the most are the small mundane moments. And I think in those small mundane moments, if you can just take a second to be grateful, to be alive and healthy, those little things accumulate to feeling more connected and less lonely. Well, they have for me. It's only been a month, but like I've really noticed a difference.
Love that. Something I started doing middle of last year is complimenting everyone. It's a really, it starts creepy, but you get into it really, like you get in quite easily. Sometimes the creepiest times I've done it, I've been in the gym changing room. I have to really pull back.
What, when people are naked?
Well, no, but this is the thing. You have to wait for them to be in their outfits. Very nice. But do you know what I do in the gym?
Love your underwear.
Yeah. Do you know what? It's not even far away from that. Like the girls in my gym always look not like 10 out of 10. All of them. They all like, I don't know what it is with my gym, but all of the girls like turn up in like their athleisure and they look incredible.
I find that quite annoying, I'll be honest.
What?
Like I would quite like to be able to go to the gym and not feel like I have to look like a 10 out of 10.
Babe, you do you.
I know, but genuinely. Because I'm like, shit, everyone's hot.
No, but so this is the thing. So I've started doing this year is if I see anything that I think is lovely, I will just tell the person. And it does, you do have to like really put your big girl pants on and just be brave enough. And some people are just going to look at you sideways and be like, what did she just say? But do you know what? 99% of the time, it lights up people's faces because I will go like, oh my God, I love that cardi. And they go, usually it's a very British thing. Very British thing.
£2. It was £2.
It's £2 from Tesco. And I'm like, okay, that's fine. Don't worry.
It's such a knee-jerk reaction.
I was like, that's fine. Or I'm like, your hair looks amazing. Or I just, anything
you are
that
not
I'm
allowed
thinking.
to dish out the hair compliment, by the way.
I feel like if I'm thinking it, I need to just start saying it, especially if it's obviously not if it's the other way around. If I'm like, you look awful. But like, I just don't think too much like that anymore. I started doing it last year and I get so much joy out of seeing people's face light up when you give them a compliment, and especially in random places. I think that's the other thing that maybe could be one of the things that cures loneliness is like just being kinder to people, because I think I now have friends at the gym and in life where I think it's actually started. Maybe they're not my best friends. But like at the gym, girls that I've complimented that have then come up to me in the queue for the Pilates class or whatever because they think they know me. And that's great. And I love that. And I just think we don't compliment people enough. We don't make people feel good about themselves. I think sometimes we're really concerned with making us okay all the time and making sure we're fine, that we forget that we are allowed to like give it out and be like, you look amazing. And also we know as women how long it takes to do all of this.
Totally.
Like, I don't wake up looking like this.
Don't you?
No, I don't. My hair is a full-time job. And so every time I think people think that I get bored of the compliments when it comes to my hair, and I never do, because I'm like, I didn't just wake up like this. Like, this does take work, and I curl my hair, and I invest time in this. And so if someone sees it and appreciates it, the same with my job. Like, I spend a lot of time putting content together when it comes to finance. And so when someone goes, that's amazing, I'm like, thank you
so much. It was not easy.
And people think that I don't read their messages or whatever, and I do. And I always reply to people, I'm like, you've made my day, because actually everything requires work. And I think one of the things I would be doing if we were trying to cure loneliness would be just give more compliments and also just say what's in your mind.
So we actually were planning on talking about Japan because there's lots of things going on there, but we're actually going to have to flag that. I think we've gone on for far too long about the loneliness saga, which I would love to talk about Japan, but I'm really glad we spent time on the loneliness piece. People would die if they know how long we've actually recorded for comparatively to the edit that they're going to listen to. But it has been such a pleasure to have you here, Abi. Honestly, you are so amazing, and I just have loved this conversation. So thank you so much.
Thank you.
It's really, I just think it's so cool to see really amazing women care about money and the economy and what's going on, but also be so multifaceted in so many ways. I think that we really do ourselves such a disservice by having this kind of self-perpetuating narrative that you have to look and be a certain way to engage in conversations about money. And you are the walking, talking example that is total bullshit. So yeah, it was such a pleasure to have you. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Sophie. I was just saying to the team, I feel like I've not been filming because obviously you're my friend. And so I feel like we've said this in the past when we've like had drinks. I'm like, we should just record our chats. And now I feel like it's one of those examples where I always, when people say like, oh, you should just podcast with your friends. And I'm like, now I'm here. And then I was like, well, the camera's on.
It's like when you think about Love Island, you're like, how the fuck do they not know that they're being filmed?
Yeah, exactly.
But you kind of get it. When you get so into something, it's quite easy to forget.
I know. I do need to fix your background though, because you don't have my book. I'm going to send it to you.
Oh my God, shit. Well, for anyone that wants to find your book and all of the work that you're doing.
Yes. So my book is called The Money Manual. It came out last year with Penguin, May last year. It is, I would say to your audience, it is very UK centric, but it gives you a really great insight into the UK market as well.
Amazing.
Also, obviously my Instagram, TikTok, is just Abigail Rose Foster. And then also I have a YouTube, which is, again, everything is Abigail Rose Foster. My YouTube, I do currently do videos where I do my hair whilst I talk about finance. It came from, because obviously I teach finance in schools like that. My business is called Ellen and we teach finance in schools. That's what the whole origination of my life was before this social media. And all the girls, obviously I teach in the schools that I teach were like, how do you do your hair? And I was like, right, I'm going to create YouTubes because that's where you are, but I'm going to sit and do my hair, but also talk about finance.
That's such a
you
good
are
idea.
going to listen. And so that's what I do. I only have I think I got 500 subscribers on it. I literally have nothing.
I think we're at about 1,000 too. We're absolute babies on YouTube.
I know.
If everyone could follow both of us, it would be stunning.
Yeah, exactly. But thank you. Thank you so much for having me. This has been lovely.
It has been so much fun. Huge apologies that we did. I feel like I'm getting into a terrible habit of saying, send us your questions, send us your feedback. And then we run out of time to answer the questions. So I'm very sorry about that. Thank you to everyone who sent in questions, particularly the ones that are targeted at the UK. We're going to answer those in the next podcast next week. Thank you so much for listening to The Curve Weekly. Make sure you hit subscribe or follow wherever you're listening so you're always up to date with the latest finance and investing news.
And feel free to leave a comment to let us know what you thought about this episode because we would love your feedback.
We've got new Curve Weekly episodes for you to listen to every Monday. But until then, listen to Erasing the Curve. These are our in-depth podcast episodes where we chat about all things money.
We're also around all week on socials if you're hungry for more Curve content, and all the links are in this podcast's show notes. We hope you have a great week and we'll catch you for the next episode of The Curve Weekly on Monday.
Okay, quickly. The Curve was created to empower and educate you about investing, but we are not financial advisors.
Our platform exists for educational purposes only, and it doesn't provide personalized investing advice for your individual needs and should not be relied upon to make an investment or financial decision.
And always remember to do your own research before making any investment or financial decision.
We're here for any knowledge and support you need, but the final call is always yours.
And thanks for being here.
You got this.
Yeah, we know you got this.